New Thought Media Network proudly presents Lindsay Leimbach, Practicing Infinite Possibilities, Fridays at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. And now, here's Lindsay.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to PIP, Practicing Infinite Possibilities. I'm so glad that everyone's here. So wherever you are, I want to thank New Thought Media Network, and I'm happy that you're here. I have not been on the air for 2 weeks. And so why? I guess I was practicing infinite possibilities. One, I actually was a keynote speaker for a convention for schools that were preschools and daycares. And that was spectacular. I loved it. It was wonderful. It was so awesome to teach these teachers and the administrations of these schools how important their brain is and how they can use their brain to be mindful, and then understanding the child's brain from 0 to 7. Wow, that brain is changing so much, and get them to understand their interaction is programming that child's brain really for a lifetime. And the thing is, when we get programming when we're young, 0 to 5, let's say, we don't remember it. We don't remember what people have taught us. But the whole time we're a sponge just taking in information. So the primary caregivers tend to be the programmers for babies and toddlers. And if you're in daycare service or in preschool service, those parents, they are the primary caregivers, the parents, but they're working and they are trusting those schools, that character, those values to those people. They're entrusting those people to be programming their children to be healthy, to have self-esteem, to believe in themselves, to learn from internally out. So when I was talking to him, I want to say, and I was on the stage and I looked down and I actually saw someone crying because she realized how important her job is. So important who we entrust our children with, because they can program for the negative, fear-based programming through punishment, or they can program through curiosity, understanding that falling down or failing is just a step to growing, and it's inevitable, and it's actually something we can celebrate. So I really enjoyed doing that talk. So that was one Friday I was off. And the second Friday I was off is because my husband had a full knee replacement surgery. So that definitely we needed to practice mindfulness, to say the least. And so we're about 10 days out and he's doing really, really well. But it had its ebbs and flows, like anything when you go into the world of the unknown. And of course, every day is the world of the unknown, but the things that you don't have control of. So we didn't have control of the hospitals. We didn't have control of the doctor's time. We didn't have control of the behavior or the attitude of the nurses. All we had was control of ourselves and having the intention that this is going to run smoothly. And when I mean smoothly, I don't mean that it's going to run my way. It means that I can lean into whatever is happening and with grace and with hope and with understanding, and keep meeting every challenge from the environment coming in without fear or pessimism. I can say, well, what can we do from here? Okay, so what can we do now? How can I change this to make it a little better? And I really had to work with that, with this being in the hospital and all these things going on. So I'll tell you more about that. And that is why we're going into Stoicism today. We're going to learn about Stoicism. It's so incredible because as I've learned more about Greek philosophy, which I've been really embracing, thinking, starting with Socrates. Is really the founder of the Greek philosophers. And then it goes on. Stoicism is birthed out of that. And I realized how much it's like Buddhism and how mindful it is. So I want to welcome some of you. Kevin's here, and he's now a pirate. And I had a great talk with him yesterday, and he too has to learn and practice Stoicism and going into the flow of recovery and leaning into what he can control and what he cannot control, because he ended up having his foot amputated. And he's doing it so much with positive and light and love. When I spoke to him, and I'm so proud of you, Kevin. I just want you to know I am so proud of you, of living fully, not living into the fear of life, but living into life to love it, to enjoy it, to be grateful for it. So proud of you. And Wayne, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you so much. He's fabulous. And Shay's here, and my parents are here. And I have a feeling some other people are here, like Trudy shows up, and quite a few of you guys watch me on reruns. So I appreciate that. So let me show you this banner. It's so cool. You know about synchronicity. Well, I got on Facebook today, and look what popped up. This is from Reverend Kusla, who is a fabulous Buddhist monk in Los Angeles, and he has a Facebook page. I recommend everyone to get on it and follow him. And he has podcasts. He's a great teacher. Anyway, he posted this morning. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. Isn't that interesting? So this is a Buddhist monk posting a Stoic philosopher. Marcus Aurelius is a Stoic philosopher, and he wrote something called Meditations. And I'm going to explain all that to you today. Oops, here it comes back again. But isn't that so cool? Is that the synchronicity that I look at? My friend who's a Buddhist monk posts a Stoicism quote today on exactly the people I'm talking about. I love the universe. I love when that happens. It's just such, I call them green flags, or the angels are with us, or whatever it is. You can't make that stuff up. And it happens when you're in the flow. It's really exciting. So I was so excited about that. So let's get into this, because I think you guys showed up to learn about Stoicism and what exactly. We hear the word Stoic so often, and we think that means being like being sound and hearty and persevering. I think of the Protestants that I grew up with being Stoic, but not being emotional. And that's not exactly true. It is about persevering, and it is about being hardy and resilient, but it doesn't mean not being emotional. It's very similar to mindfulness, being aware of what's going on without the judgment, without telling the negative story. Stoicism is a philosophy about not telling yourself a story, about seeing what is real, what's really present in the moment, and then living into that. So let me show you this. You'll like this. Stoicism is a philosophy that teaches us to focus on what we can control and accept what we cannot, while living a virtuous life. Is that awesome? Is that Buddhism? Is that mindfulness? Is that new thought? Absolutely. Absolutely. So it is so beautiful that we go there. And what I want to say, and if you go back to and accept what we can't control, I did a thing on radical acceptance, and Tara Brach wrote a beautiful book on radical acceptance. And that is what that is. Accept the things we can't control. Because if you can accept the things you can't control, then you don't react to them. And so we're going to get into it. Like when I went to the hospital with Randy, we were meant to go in at 7:30 in the morning. And then they were like, I mean, his surgery was meant to start at 7:30 in the morning. We got there at 6. So we got up to our room around 6:20, and they said, where have you been? And we're like, checking in downstairs. We got here on time. They're like, oh, the people in front of you came earlier. You mean they came 5 minutes before us? So we're putting them first. What? So now that we're being bumped out from first spot? Not like that. We weren't late. So whatever, you've got to, I can't control that. I don't want to argue with the nurse, right? I don't want to argue with the doctor and the surgical team. They need to be feeling really good about my husband. And so we just said, looked at them and said, okay, so how long will it be? About 2 hours. We said, okay. So we had to accept what we couldn't control. Now, what we could control is our reaction to them. This is Stoic philosophy. And you could say, Lindsay, this is practical advice in everything. Yeah, I know. It's true. But it really is part of the foundation of Stoic philosophy. So then we were super nice and super kind. And 2 hours went by and still not the time. So just jump ahead. 11 o'clock came around. And then close to 11:30. So we're 4 hours out. And they're like, okay, we're ready. So we started 4 hours late, which pushed his recovery time 4 hours late, which meant for sure he was going to be spending the night in the hospital. So it is what it is. And we just embrace it. That's Stoicism. And we accept it and we don't fight it. And then we make the best out of it and we make everyone enjoy our company. So we are not the problem, but we are part of the solution. So let me come down to this. All right. So what is Stoicism? Stoicism is a philosophy that came out of Greece. Okay. It came out of Athens, really. So if you went back to Athens, like I said, there's Socrates, and then Socrates came out. He's like the father of Western philosophy. That's what a lot of people say. And he was about, I think around 400 BC. And then he had a teacher, which is Pluto. Pluto. Did I say that right? Pluto. For some reason, I'm feeling I'm saying that wrong. But anyway, and then Socrates had a student with Plato. I know it's not Pluto. Plato, okay, was his student. And then Aristotle was Plato's student. And then you go forward, and then Zeno here at 334 BC was Aristotle and some of those students from them. And Zeno was the founder of the Stoicism, the philosophy of Stoicism. A lot of people say that. There's a lot of Stoic philosophers that came from that. Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius are two very famous ones, and you'll see them quoted quite often. But someone else who followed Stoicism was George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, and also Theodore Roosevelt. There's tons of people that actually studied Stoicism and implemented them in their conduct of behavior and their philosophy. You have to remember, George Washington was not exposed to like Buddhism or meditation or anything like that from the Eastern philosophies, but Stoicism has all those concepts in it. And so he actually had a lot of these wonderful gifts that I learned through Buddhism, but he learned it through Stoicism. So when I'm learning Stoicism, I'm like, oh my God, I get it. This is so cool. This is kind of the Western evolution of a lot of things that I learned from Eastern culture. And then when people stopped really reading the classics in school, that's when Stoicism went down a lot, but it's now being very much rebirthed. Okay, I want to tell you about two different people in this. First, I want to tell you about who Epictetus was, because it's very important, because I'm going to use some quotes, but it's important for you to know who this guy was. He was a slave. He was born a slave, okay? And he was born in 55 AD and he lived to 135 AD. He was a slave for 30 years. 30 years until he was freed. And he was a slave to someone an aristocrat that was really high up. And there was a lot of philosophy going on where he lived within the community. He was a slave. So he listened and he learned, but from the outside because he was a slave. And he had a limp because his slave owner was, I can't think of the word, but people that like to torture people or torture animals just for the sake of it, he was like that. And he actually broke his leg. So for him to end up becoming a very famous Stoic philosopher, coming from 30 years of slavery and torture, is amazing when you read the things that he wrote. The other person we're going to talk about today is Marcus Aurelius. Now, Marcus Aurelius learned from Epictetus, and he learned from a whole bunch of people that Epictetus taught, because Epictetus became a big philosopher and a big teacher. And then Marcus Aurelius learned from his students. Marcus Aurelius, you will see a lot because you'll see this a lot. It's called Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. This is an old version of it, very small. And this is a larger version because it has a lot more information in it. And what Meditations is not a book on meditations. It's not. So it confuses people. Marcus Aurelius was the Roman emperor, okay? He was adopted and he was groomed to be the Roman emperor. And he became the Roman emperor. You can see that at 161 AD. And a lot of people say he's called the philosopher Roman emperor. He actually lived a Stoic life as the emperor, and he really helped people a lot. And he would journal every single night. He had rituals in the morning and he had rituals at night, and he would journal. And he would journal all this stuff about how he feels about ruling, not really like gossip journal, but just to make sure that he stayed in line, that he remembered the Stoic philosophy so he could rule the very highest and best. What happened, which is so interesting, when Marcus Aurelius was Roman emperor, is that a plague came in, and they actually think it was smallpox. And millions of people died in the streets. And instead of Marcus Aurelius totally retreating back and hiding and making taxes higher because the armies were dying because of this smallpox and everything, he ended up selling the Roman emperor stuff. He actually went out and sold it to generate money for the government because he said, I don't need this stuff. And so when you want to read about his philosophy and how he ruled the emperors, these are really his journals. And so someone put them after he died, put them together into a book. It is really good. You can go anywhere in the book, open it up and you read it, and it's filled with magnificent philosophy of how do you not get trapped in your ego? How you serve the people for the better? How do you understand what it's like when you're dealing with people that don't understand or are filled with hate, and not let that hate go into you? That is what he taught. So I want to just go in and tell you the basics. I'm going to come up to my comments real quick, just see what they're saying. You know what? Here, Wayne wrote this. Embrace the suck. You know what? That also is, I got to take down that banner. That is also my brother, who's a Marine. They have that. Embrace the suck. It means that when things are going bad or not going your way, you embrace it. It's radical acceptance. It's another way. I'm radically going to accept that this is not happening the way I planned it. And if I can be calm in that, then I can make a wiser and better choice, because I don't have control of the environment. And that's exactly what Randy and I did at the hospital when they bumped us out, which made us know that for sure we were staying in the hospital that night, which of course changed all our plans. And we had other things that happened while we were there, and you had to embrace the suck or radical acceptance. That's a very Stoic philosophy. You don't get angry at it, you work with it. And that's why a lot of times people say, oh, Stoicism means that you're not emotional. That's not what it's about. It's about that you don't allow your emotions to rule you. Okay, you can have emotions, but how are you going to react to them? All right, so here is the 4 Stoic traits are inherently, there's 4 Stoic traits and they're inherently combined together. So it's not like one is better than the other. So in a quick summary of the 4 Stoic traits, wisdom is number 1. It helps us to make good choices. Courage is number 2. It helps us to face our challenges, to face fear. So that you have to be smart in wisdom. So that means that you have to have knowledge and study. Stoics always are saying, learn, 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 learn. Keep learning. Keep learning. Courage, so you can embrace the suck, so you can see what's wrong and not overreact to it. Don't fall into fear. Temperance, that helps us stay balanced. So we want to be in the middle path. Very Buddhist, right? Don't go to extremes. Don't go to extremes. Have that balanced life. And justice, and what they mean by justice, it means that we help others. Stoicism believes in interconnection. They believe that we're all interconnected. So a lot of Stoic leaders, they embrace that women should get educated, to treat your slaves well. Now, I know we're talking about in Roman time. Okay, so slavery is horrible, but they believe that you treat all people with dignity. So that was like breakthrough thoughts happening when it comes to it. So wisdom. This means, I want to just break this down a little bit more. Wisdom means that you understand the teachings. And that's very much the Buddhist philosophy too. And I think, you have to have a foundation of knowledge so you can make good choices. Now, in our life right now, understanding that we have this brain, which is a tool that we have to work with. An inner brain, we have the lower brain, the middle brain, and the upper brain, meaning we have the caveman brain, which is that quick reaction, and the amygdala, and that it gets us all startled and we want to run away or we want to fight. That's part of our brain. It's in everybody. That's wisdom. So when I get that quick reaction, and if I act on it and I end up doing something that's not skillful, then I can then have the wisdom to step back and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking for my higher brain. I was thinking for my lower brain. But that is part of our wisdom, is to understand how our brain works. If we're hungry, if we're tired, are we meditating? Are we reading stuff? Are we watching the news first thing in the morning and setting ourselves up to be in fear? The wisdom to know not to do that, to have a morning ritual. And the Stoics really believed in morning rituals to set yourself up to have a good day with a good intention. So Epictetus said, we must accept what cannot be changed. We must accept what cannot be changed, have the courage to change what should be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. Okay, who's heard that before? That's the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer is actually Stoic philosophy quote from Epictetus. When I found that out, my mind just went, oh my gosh, do you see that? This slave came out and is quoted in saying, we must accept what cannot be changed. He could not get out of slavery or he would be killed. And have the courage to change what should be changed. He knows that he could keep developing his brain. He knew he didn't have to fall into victimhood, even though he was placed in a victim situation. And the wisdom to know the difference. Oh my gosh, if he can do it as a slave, being tortured, Can I do it in a hospital? You betcha. You betcha. Okay, let me go down. Here's another one that I liked from him. It's not the things that upset us. It's our opinion of things. Think about that. It's not the things that upset us, but it's our opinions of things. Things happen, and it's the story that you tell yourself that upsets you. And of course, we've heard this in psychology. We've heard this in spirituality. We've heard this so many times, but it was so incredible that it was written down in 50 AD from a slave. So it's not the things that upset us. So the doctor didn't want to take us first. It's our opinion. If I feel like my opinion was, oh, they don't care about us, they're dismissing us, this hospital is a bad place, then let me tell you, I would have had a really hard day at the hospital. So I needed to look at it and think, well, maybe that other gentleman really needed to go in first. I don't know. The angels set it up that way. The universe set it up that way. He needed to go first. It's a gift. If that guy needs to go, then he can go because we're fine. We can wait. It's okay. Can I wait with love? Right? So have that wisdom. Okay, the second thing, is courage. This means facing our fears and challenges with courage and resilience. Stoics believe that we should not let our emotions control us and that we should always strive to do what is right. So it doesn't mean that you don't have emotions, okay? It doesn't mean you dismiss your emotions. It means that when you feel angry or overwhelmed or stressed, that you can take a breath. One of the Stoics went up, I think it was, I don't want to quote it because I'll be messed up. He said, but before you retired, and this wasn't to Marcus Aurelius, it was like to Marcus Aurelius's predecessor. And he said, before I leave, I want to tell you to the Roman emperor, he said, this is what you do. He goes, what am I going to do without you? He said, anytime you get emotional, you say your ABCs. And of course, they're talking about in Greece. A, B, C, D. I'm sure they didn't have the song. But he said, say your ABCs to the end and then make a choice. What he's saying is calm down your brain. We say count to 10. Say the Serenity Prayer. Whatever it is, walk away, take 5 breaths. He told the Roman emperor to say his ABCs. This stuff works. And it works for Roman emperors and it can work for us, right? So we want to have that courage. Marcus Aurelius said, the mind is formed by what it feeds on. So if you're going to feed your mind with your own anger and emotions, then you're just going to have more anger and emotions. Right? What you think about, you bring about. If you sit and you read these wonderful books like The 4 Agreements, or I recommend to actually get the book, Meditations by Mark Aurelius, things like that, you feed your mind good stuff and you get good stuff. It reminds me of the Native American story where the chief was sitting with a little boy and he said, I want to tell you a story. We each have 2 wolves inside of us. And both of the wolves can grow. And one is filled with anger and pain and victimhood. And the other one's filled with love and joy. And he said, the little boy looks at the chief and says, who wins in this war between these 2? And he says, the one you feed. And I'm sure that's an old, I think it's Cherokee fable. You can look it up, The 2 Wolves. That's a long time ago. I'm sure he did not read Marcus Aurelius. The mind is formed by what is fed. But the bottom line is a truth is the truth. The truth is the truth. Don't try to escape hardship. Embrace it. Epictetus. And it doesn't mean that you should put yourself in a bad situation, but it means don't run away. Face it, learn from it, and then take action. They believe that we're all interconnected. If you saw things that are not going well in politics or with people or whatever it is in a relationship, when they say embrace it, it doesn't mean accept it. It means face it, look at it, and then learn from it, and then take an action and move on. Do something different. Feed your brain with new information. Okay, we only got through 2. And so we're going to go next week and do temperance and justice and do some more quotes, because I just am so excited how Stoicism is really, as Wayne says, the circle of love, ever expanding. Yes, because Stoicism is part of the circle of love. It's part of the universal philosophy of what I call God, being expressed in many different ways. Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam. There's beautiful people writing stuff all the time. Rumi from Islam, right? Jesus in Christianity, the Buddha in Buddhism, and Marcus Aurelius in Stoicism, but they all are speaking the same truths. So let's embrace that. Next week, we'll do this some more. I really am having fun with you guys. I want to thank New Thought Media Network for everything they do. I got to find my little banner. Let me take this one down. Here we go. Where is it? Here it is. And I want to put up, let me throw one last one in. Gratitude is the fairest blossom which springs from the soul. Gratitude is the fairest blossom that springs from the soul. I want to thank you all for showing up, and thank you for being supportive. It means a lot to me that you're here with me. And I want to thank New Thought Media Network for allowing this platform, for all this good information to come out. Remember, it's a nonprofit organization and it lives on donations. And if anyone wants to get in touch with me, centeredmoment@gmail.com, or message me through Facebook. I want you all to have a wonderful weekend and week, and I will see you next week learning part 2 of Stoicism. Bye-bye.